Hey, I'm back with another tank build. Now I am setting up this Waterbox Infinia 6025 Peninsula tank, and here we go. So if you've been following my channel, you might be wondering, why am I setting up a new tank? Yes, I did just set up a 38 gallon and I did just tear down a 170 gallon SPS tank just like this one. So if you don't know, I live in Washington, DC, and we were gonna sell our condo last fall. Politics happen in Washington, DC. It's early 2025, and you can imagine the housing market in DC kind of died. So we had no interest in our condo. There's really no serious buyers here right now. So we were gonna take our place off the market for a little while and try again in the spring. But then we heard that the project that kind of caused us to wanna move was kind of postponed indefinitely and probably canceled. So there's really no reason for us to move now, which is awesome. We took our place off the market, and the day I took it off the market, I had this tank ordered. This is the Waterbox Infinia 6025. I initially ordered the one smaller than this. This is 135 gallons, more or less. I ordered the 80 gallon and it said it was ready to ship, but it never shipped for 3 weeks. I called, they didn't have the white stand, and they said I could either pick another stand or they'll give me a deal on the one size up. And then after thinking about it, I don't even know why I considered the smaller size and went with this tank. So it is 5 feet across, 22 inches tall, and 25 inches front to back. Now, my old tank was 5 feet, came out 30, but was only 20 tall. And quite honestly, I like this tank a little better. At that 30 depth, it was, you did have more space to work with, but when you're looking through the glass, you don't really see it. Definitely was bigger, but it doesn't feel bigger. And this one doesn't jut out into the room as much, so that makes us happy. Now, the thing I like about it is it's 22 tall versus 20, so that extra 2 inches of height actually makes this tank look a little bigger than the other one. How I ran that old tank, it was designed to grow SPS very quickly and very efficiently. So I had all the controllers, I had all the testers, and did all of the additives and worried about my pH, all that kind of stuff. Kind of high maintenance. With this tank, the difference is I kind of grew a soft spot for some LPS, and I want to keep things simple. We're not going to stay here forever, so I don't want wall-to-wall SPS in here, because by the time they finally get growing and moving, I'm going to have to move them again. What the goal is in this tank is to do pretty well mixed reef. I'm going to get some SPS at some point. I'm going to shoot for fast growing, easy stuff I like. Not really like crazy big names, but maybe a few here and there. And then I'm going to keep the equipment very, very simple in this tank. So as you can see, I have it up and running. I have rock, I have coral, I have some fish. But stay tuned and I will go over the entire system build and kind of what I'm running this time around. Okay, so I just got done aquascaping with the Emarco 400. This is one piece. I just used the Emarco to attach that rock to here. I originally used C-Tac to put this shelf here and then that shelf up there. It just looks like kind of spray foam you'd use on your house when it dries, kind of ugly. So I used some of this mortar to cover up that C-Tac glue. And actually, it does a really good job of gluing dry rock to dry rock. I've heard it doesn't do well wet. I think it took like almost 24 hours to fully harden. So I had like this and this supported by other rock for about a day before I submerged it. And when I took it out of the bucket, I grabbed it by here and it didn't budge. So I think SeaTac does a pretty good job, but it's so hard to work with. The eMarco 400, I mean, it's dry in an hour or two. Just put the powder in there and then the solution, mix it up until it's kind of mushy, like a milkshake, and then you just slather it on there. And then here's the other one that I really like. So I had the one piece and then I attached these 3 on there with the mortar, and it's doing a good job. This is pretty solid. I feel like I could lift the whole thing up by this rock and it'll hold everything. Now I'm not gonna try it, but I have no doubt that it could support all that weight. So yeah, that's gonna be a pretty cool standalone piece on one side. And then I'm gonna have this chunky boy on the other side. One thing I will do before I put these in the tank is I'm gonna order some of that Stax rock. It's just Marco rock that's kind of cut on 2 sides, so it's like an inch, maybe a little bit more than an inch slab. So I'll take that, I'll chop it into little peg chunks, and then I'll glue those on here. So when I put this in the sand bed, it's not just a big flat piece sitting on the sand bed. There'll be little stilts on it. So then the sand that goes under it can still get turned over by worms and what. All right, I'm about ready to put this stand together. Just looking at it, initially it looks like it's mostly put together in panels. Like all these are already put together. I just need to screw them all together. One thing I didn't realize that's gonna save me some money is it comes with a screen top, so that's pretty sweet. Oh, holy shit. Well, maybe it's not as put together as I thought, but it shouldn't be too bad. The instructions are not as good as I would have hoped, but they're not terrible. What's funny is this is exact same style of stand that I made for my other tank. And I just kind of thought that one up. I didn't really look at anything on how to build it. And it's pretty much the same thing that Waterbox uses. What's funny though is this bar is thinner than the one I'm using for my Nano. Just goes to show how overbuilt my Nano stand is, only because I got that aluminum bar for free. But yeah, this thing should be pretty sweet once I get it up and running. I did not get a lot of good footage during the move. So here's the tank in the crate. Took a bit to unpack it, a lot of screws and staples to get the crate off. It was very well packaged. So I had no complaints about Waterbox's shipping of the tank. Me and 2 other guys got some suction cup movers, put it on a dolly, well, a pair of dollies on basically the lid, and then we lifted it into place quite easily. So there it is. All right, so the tank is full and I'm going to add my salt. This is fresh water. I just filled it up. Took 3.5 days to fill it up. I think my RO is running a little slow. I did not do a leak test on this because I don't really have a good way of filling it up with like a hose and draining it out because I don't have a hose. So I just filled it with RO. I cleaned it first with citric acid and then baking soda, wiped it out. And then because I didn't do that initial leak test with just tap water, I ran carbon and GFO in here, maybe like 12 hours to get, anything else that might be in the water. Used the media reactor with a bunch, way more carbon and GFO than I would need. I don't really use it anymore, so it's just been hanging out, so I don't really care that I'm wasting it. Use that to kind of clean up the water. I have a power filter in here. Any junk left over, silicone, powder, dust, whatever that might still be lingering in the pipes or whatever. So that'll clean that out. Got the flow going. Heaters in there, trying to heat up the water, which might take a while. I'm gonna add a second heater to kind of speed that up. So I measured out the actual water dimensions. So use the inside dimensions of the display and the sump, and I calculated about right around 150, maybe few gallons more, 150 gallons of water. Instant Ocean buckets say they're good for 160 gallons, but that's if you want your salinity to be 1.022. I run 35 parts per thousand, which I think is the same as a specific gravity is 1.026. So I'm gonna dump this whole bucket in there, and I think I'll still be low. I have another bucket and a half to go, but I'm just gonna dump the whole thing and see how long that takes to mix up. And then maybe if it's mixed up by tomorrow, I can start adding the rock that I've been cooking and start getting the cycle in the tank rather than just in a brute trash can. That way I can get my plumbing, my pipes, my surfaces all coated with bacteria too. So then maybe in a week or two, I can start adding some small fish. So I think what I'm gonna do is just lift this up and dump the whole bucket in the display tank. Whoa. I think there's some big chunks in here. Wonder if this is gonna flood my sump. Oh shit. Well, I didn't expect that to happen. That's one way to do it. Time for some towels. So the salt is completely mixed, and now I'm adding the rock that I've been cooking in a big brute trash can for a while, so they should be pretty much cured for the most part. So those go in, and then now I'm adding some Carib Sea special grade sand. So I got that in there with a polishing filter and the 2 filter socks in the sump. So one thing I want to do is remove some of the black vinyl on the side of the tank, which if this was a true Peninsula, it would be the back. It kind of created this black wall facing our dining room table and kind of looked a little dark and weird. So what I did is I measured where the overflow box is, then clamped a more or less straight edge, and then just used a razor knife to lightly score the vinyl both ways, and then I peeled it off. It adds a little more light to where the dining area is, and you can still see some of the tank from that angle. It just makes it look a lot brighter, which I like a bright tank, and I hate black backgrounds. Got the new Tunze NanoStream 6075. It's kind of their middle of the road power head. I had the 6105. This is a step down from that. New design, uses very, very low power. Big fan of Tunze. Oh. So for skimmer, I'm using the Tunze 9410 DC. Apparently it's rated for up to 300 and something gallons, so should be future-proof. I hear these are silent and pretty no fuss, which is what I'm all about. Eheim Jager heaters. I've been using these for 15 years. Never had one fail on me except the one that cracked, which is probably my fault, so I'm gonna stick with those. I end up replacing my heaters every year or two anyways. I'm gonna do a quick unboxing for the skimmer that I chose. It's the Tunze DOC Skimmer 9410 DC. I wanted to try something new. I really like the Tunze brand. So let's take a look. Ugh. What the fuck is that? I got this pipe. What is, I don't see that on here. What is that pipe for? Not bad. Looks pretty small for being rated for 300 gallons, but I think that's fine with me as long as it functions. It looks like this is something called a hydrofoam. In order to increase the foam capacity, the skimmer cup can be replaced by the foam extraction unit. I'm guessing you can run this to a bucket or something, so that might be nice for someone that wanted a wet skim. You know, run this to a bucket rather than the cup. I guess that's a cool option if that's the way you go. And then I always like it when a company includes the extra stuff like a cleaning tool. There you go. Tunze 6075 wave maker. Flow rate from 700 to 2,000 gallons per hour and uses anywhere between 1 and 8 watts, which is crazy low. Literature, I think that's the bracket, the controller. Wow, look at that. That thing is sexy. So I'm hanging these Stratons a little different this time. Instead of the cord coming out the back like they're supposed to, I'm running them sideways, and the cords kind of meet in the middle and go up. And with that, I can run a single bar instead of the cage like I had before. So it makes the hanging look a lot nicer. I had these shelf brackets from my old Red Sea tank, and they come out 14.5 inches, which is perfect because it was exactly halfway out into the tank. So they hang perfectly in the middle of the tank this way, and it looks a lot nicer from above. Now, having them come out and meet in the middle like this, it did create a little bit of a challenge because the cord kind of pulls, and it was hard getting the lights kind of level and square. They're not perfect, but it's good enough. So I taped them together with some white electrical tape to kind of help it blend in. And then they go up the wall, across the ceiling, and then I have all of the controllers and electronics up on a shelf, plugged into this power strip, which then comes over to this dedicated outlet for my old tank. So my lights are on a different breaker than the rest of the tank, so that will hopefully prevent some tripping. That's how it looks from in front of the tank. You don't see all of the plugs and stuff. You just see some hanging kits, the aluminum bar and brackets, and then a line going up the wall. I think it turned out really clean and minimalistic. So that is it for the initial build of this tank. I wanted to split this video into 2 parts, so the next video is going to cover all the equipment in the tank and all the livestock that I have in the tank right now, and coral, the fish, and how everything's doing. So keep a lookout for that video in the next week or 2.